careful
Got it.
what you say.
On neutral side.
I promise nothing.
Yeah, yes. Okay.
I doubt.
I'm not saying you have to be neutral. You make your opinion quite clear, but don't
Quite clear.
don't go have yourself recorded saying I can hate Trump. He's an asshole.
No, don't worry about it. I'm not gonna go that far.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I didn't think you would. Are you ready?
Ready.
Oh.
Welcome back, and now it's time for part 2 where we're discussing media trends. Every week we talk about a different media trend, and we have our live show with Talk and Talk. With me this year we have Dennis and Tim. How you guys doing?
Woo, thank you for having us. Happy Sunday. I'm very nice. And how about you guys?
Tired, but then I'm always tired, so
I know why you were tired. Because of team, right? Not of me, right? Thank you so
Okay,
much.
why specifically me?
Because
Like,
you're
why?
wearing a mask like a villain, right? Always.
Like, how does that relate to him being tired? I don't understand this logic.
Always.
But seriously, how? I mean, you know what? Looking at a guy wearing a mask all
ask
the
you what
time
made
can
you
be
tired?
tiring.
Oh,
Is that-
just too much work to do.
See, I have nothing to do with it.
a little point, a little percent of you.
It's only you, Dennis, who get tired of my beautiful white face mask.
All right, how about your team?
Me? Getting sick of children as usual, you know, those little gremlins always, you know, grumbling around and saying, teacher, I don't want to study.
I
Can we
can
just
feel it.
play? I'm like, no.
Yeah. There's one thing we have to celebrate. The engineer initiative came back. Woo! I missed you so much.
Even
All
though
right.
people cannot really see it, but her return
She got a
actually brings a
beautiful baby.
new light in
So,
the
I
studio.
didn't
What
see
am I
it.
saying? It doesn't. But anyway, let's just say it does. Right?
Let's move on.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I think we better start today's topic. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the differences in reporting about the Trump and Biden U.S. presidential election.
Very serious.
So finally, the election is over, and it seems Joe Biden's won, but Trump doesn't want to accept this result, insisting that there's fraud and other irregularities. It was a very big election, and it affects all around the world, Korea too. And I believe you guys must have seen and read about in the news. Yeah, from country to country.
We read. You know, the whole day and in Korean, there's media and on TV, you know, like there's a live coverage of U.S. election.
Yeah.
So I feel like that. Okay, is that the Korean election? Like that? Because you know the political relationship we have very very good and close and very important serious relationship between Japan and China and the U.S. right? So that's why they made kind of live coverage. But it was a little boring, but yet still exciting.
Yeah, Tim, have you seen all about it?
Too much.
Too much.
Too much.
Yeah, too much.
Too much
and
and
those
what?
2 words summarize my feelings towards it as well. But to be honest, I'll be honest about this just for one time. I think there has been a lot of, issue about reporting who's the better and stuff. I think the most important part is whoever becomes the next president of the United States, the most important part for us is that we should try to, support for the one who's actually trying to benefit our country of all.
That's right.
By our country, you mean Korea?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I know mask and stuff and kind of confusing as to my nationality.
Yeah, but I thought you meant like if you're Korean, you support Korea. If you're American, you want American. That's what I thought you meant.
No. I mean, in this case, we're not doing Korean election. This is about the election in the United States. So obviously, whoever becomes the next president, we should all consider about what kind of consequences can it bring to the country as we are living in Korea and what it means to us, to be specific. And that's why a lot of medias are covering for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm telling you, I just woke up one day at 6 a.m. because somebody was tuning on TV so loud. I was like, okay, what's going on?
Yeah.
And I saw my family just sitting on their, couch and watching TV, talking about United States election. I was like, can I have my sleep? It's not going to come out over the night.
Even though Korean people, I think most of Korean people are interested in kind of U.S. election, U.S. election, right? But the mass media just there to show this all day, so maybe they couldn't help but just avoiding, that the news, right?
Well, I think it's impossible to like avoid it.
Hmm.
I know whenever I ask my students, do they read the news? Do they, actually search it out? And most of them don't really make
Yeah.
any effort to read any news, but they all knew about the election and what was happening.
Hmm.
So that,
That's that's the media has a kind of the high responsibility, right, in society, because if they show all day, maybe people get kind of infected, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing I'd like to talk about today is obviously I'm from England,
Mm.
and a lot of news comes through the BBC.
Ah.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about what the BBC is saying, and maybe you can tell me about Korean news
Sure,
media.
sure.
Okay. So the BBC is very much kind of moved on from the election now,
Hmm.
and the story is not really about the contestant, like Trump's contestant. It's all about now Biden is president.
Hmm.
What's going to happen
Hmm.
now? Trump has lost. What's going to happen to him?
Hmm.
So they also the words are quite interesting that they use. So
Please, please.
when you use certain words, you can give connotations to your sentence.
Mhm.
So when they do talk about Trump's vote for claims,
Yeah.
if they were pro-Trump, they'd use positive words, whereas the
Ah.
BBC is using negative words
Mm.
like unsubstantiated.
Mm.
So they don't actively say negative things about Trump,
Mm.
but they're using negative words
Ah,
in a way to
understand.
imply that they're not on his side.
They imply something. Yeah, got it.
So they're always using those adjectives to lead people to believe that Trump is a lost cause.
Mm.
His voter fraud claims are not true, and so forth. But they don't actively outright say it.
Because it's media. Okay, they
Yeah.
should be careful.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So
And
how about Korean media? Did they do something similar?
not that much because it's kind of not a kind of the big issue of our country, just South Korea, right?
Mhm.
Just last night, I just tuning the TV and I saw just they are still kind of covering some news about the U.S. election. Okay, Trump just keeps kind of claiming, okay, this is unfair, I will not surrender, kind of like that,
Mhm.
and then just start thinking about they're expecting what the situation of Korean Peninsula will change. That is the kind of first issue we should be
Right.
focused. We should
Mhm.
focus, and then the next one is kind of the three unions as Japan and Korea and U.S. And maybe the next one is kind of the problem with just North Korea. That is kind of the three things the mass media of Korea just they're considering. Okay, that's it. Just they are not very just interested in because what happens in U.S. now. Okay.
So is it just moved on?
Yeah.
The Korean media is like Biden's won. It's over. It's finished.
Yeah, most, but
Mm.
some a little just other section, just a little, maybe 10%, but I'm not sure. They just we have to wait until the December
Okay.
because in U.S. election histories there are 3 or 4 cases just they just turned over, reversed, they turned over, right?
Right.
So we have to be waited, just till kind of December result. Okay, but anyway. Pretty sure there's a big gap, right? Of kind of voting. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I think from what I get, and it's over as far
yeah,
as
yeah.
as
It's
far as
over.
I get.
Okay.
But that's what I'm
Donald
hearing.
Trump cannot turn over it. So.
So Tim, you're being very quiet.
That's your part.
I mean, I've been hearing
Political.
what Dennis said, and I was thinking, well, what should I say about Korean media? But he basically covered it all. I was
To
like,
play a
huh.
role of the Joe Biden.
Sorry, what? So I will say this though: mainstream media has been negative and very vocally assaultive and negative about the Trump agency and the government
Hmm.
throughout his whole reign,
Hmm.
and a lot of censorship of the ideals has happening in a lot of platforms and medias.
Mm.
And I don't know if this is really the right direction. Besides the election point about the certain platforms getting too political as to
Right.
censor some of the other ideas, because the freedom of speech and the basically all the meaning behind the freedom of speech, that we should respect the all the ideals and opinions regarding your political agendas, or what kind of opinions you have, as long as it's not something very tyrannical or anarchic sounding or crazy opinions. As long as it's a bare opinion of someone else, it should be remain on the platform, and they should have right to speak about them. But sometimes I look at the world where it's heading towards to, and thinking to myself, maybe we're getting too political. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like
All
there
right.
are too many hatred between those two factions and the other side.
Okay. Let's take a break there. We'll come
Yeah.
back to it
Okay.
after.
All right.
But we've got our song break, which is Dennis's request.
Actually, there was a team's choice, but yeah, I had to do that. So Castle on the Hill by Ed Sheeran. Let's go.
Why that goddamn? Why everybody loves him? I have no idea why. I mean, do you like him?
First of all, he's British.
It's not a. I don't really have a negative or a positive opinion. His songs are.
I mean, his songs are unique. I
But
get it.
I'm
Some
good.
of them are actually good.
I love that song.
I
Castle on the Hill.
understand that, but I'm not.
But I wouldn't go out of my way to buy his album.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, Ed
Ready to start
Sheeran,
again?
Yeah, let's go.
seen everywhere.
Okay, so let's keep talking about today's topic.
Yeah.
So we kind of briefly talked about what the BBC is saying, what Western, well, I shouldn't say Western, English
Yeah.
media is saying, and what Korean media is saying.
Mhm.
I have one question further before that, before we get into our
Go ahead.
things. Is the BBC is kind of unique in that it's government funded.
You're right.
So because it's government funded, it should attempt to try to be as neutral as possible.
That's very
doesn't
tricky
re-
question.
It doesn't really succeed.
But
I'm thinking about Korean media. Korean media is not government
yeah,
funded.
you're right. You're right.
It's a company, right? So
Yeah.
they don't have to follow one side over the other. They can follow their
Mm.
own personal
Mm.
or the company's beliefs. So is that true?
Yeah, that's
they
true.
do.
Yeah, 100% true.
Yeah.
So that is a thing that I really like the BBC, because even though it's kind of the government funded, but it's always just they will try to just keep on kind of the neutral side. That's the kind of the true color of media. But
Yeah.
some Korean media companies, I think, even sometimes government funded, the big media company, sometimes they just lose just their way, just on a neutral side.
Mhm.
So I felt like that. You're right, right? Because former presidential kind of regime just because who is in now is in prison. Okay, he changed everything committee of the big media company, government funded, and they just on kind of the positive side to governments. Yeah, so we went through that experience.
Okay, let me just give you a little example to explain about our media. We are not officially funded by government, usually,
Mhm.
but you have to think about this. When was the last time you saw the mainstream media in this country, talking negatively about their current government before they lose their power?
I mean, I guess. Well, the kind of liberal side.
Yeah.
I won't say their names, but
Mm.
they tended to be fairly negative about Park Geun-hye.
Ah,
But it was only
Human rights
around
watch.
the end of the cycle era, was it not?
Mm.
When they started vocalizing about it. Before that, during the peak of, whoever was the president at the time, doesn't matter it was Miss Park or it was before that or it was even before that.
Mhm.
When they were in the peak of power, nobody talks negatively about the current government. And when they start losing power and all the stuff start coming out, then they start talking about, their government in a negative light.
Mhm.
I think in that regard, Western media is much more, how should I say, liberated.
Right. Okay.
Mm.
Well, I think with Western media, if you mean the American companies, so for
No,
example.
I mean American media and European medias.
Okay. Well, the American media tends to be very much they have their side and that they stick to it. So it
That is
doesn't matter
true.
who is the president or who isn't. They have their side. It's done. That's the side they're going to
Mm.
report. As I said, the BBC tries to be neutral. It always There is always complaints
Mhm.
from both sides
Mhm.
about its reporting, but there is typically more complaints from the conservative side
Uh-huh.
saying that the BBC is too liberal.
Mhm.
And I would agree it's on the liberal side. I mean, personally, for me, that matches my
Yeah.
beliefs, so I'm okay with it. But yeah, there's always complaints that it is kind of liberal.
But actually, it is not a kind of government funded, kind of nations funded, right? People's funded.
Yeah, but it's funded through
Administration.
a license administrated by the
Ah.
government. The government then passes the money to the BBC.
But by the people.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I would still say it is much more, how should I say, has more liberty to express their own opinions than the media in many Asian countries, including, this one, from my
Uh,
perspective.
well, maybe do feel that, but often the BBC does feel hamstrung actually. If the as I said, the BBC tends to be kind of liberally biased.
Hmm.
Whether that's I don't think that's a deliberate thing. I think it just happens that people who work in television tend to be more liberal than conservative. I don't know if that's a true opinion, but people who want to be in front of the camera tend to be a bit more liberal.
I mean, I think you're trying to say they're trying to be more, look, how should I say, more cleaner and, more liking towards another, because anyone who's out in the public doesn't really want to be viewed as negative figure. Nobody wants that. That's why a lot of
Mhm.
individuals on the
Mhm.
YTube or so, or in any kind of streaming website and platform, trying to be act much more nicer and
Yeah,
more
that's true.
dignifying in front of the others, because they're out in the public, and it's the image that actually makes the money.
But the BBC does struggle sometimes in that when there is a conservative government, if they say negative things about the conservative viewpoint, there's sometimes
Mm.
threats of we're going to take some funding away.
Mm.
Yeah, sounds very similar to something I know.
Well, I think this everybody and every country has kind of conflict, like an argument, right? That's kind of so much natural. So this I think the before YTube era, okay, it's just mass media just had this kind of like the old control rights, but now just being conflict is so natural. So just since Y2, so many individual channels they just made their voices, and so I think we are just walking into kind of more healthy way to just multiple society and to understand each other, right? So I think that is really good point and good benefits of media, all kinds of media.
Okay, so let's bring it back to GFN.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so how can GFN go about reporting on this very tricky but very important issue of
You're right.
politics?
Yes.
Right. So I'm talking about foreign politics, such as the American presidential election, but I'm also talking about politics here. So when there is a Korean presidential election or some election in Korea, what can Gwangju do to report on it?
Well, I think first of all, the GFN exists to handle, address is kind of the result, of course, and then what were the process of each side, and what's the opinions of in each side, liberal side and conservative side, and compare, and then we can maybe invite some two sides panels, and we have a little kind of the discussion or like that. Oh, and the final thing it should be kind of the how can you change the better Korean Peninsula? That should have been the last one for GFN to do.
Yeah, I mean, politics is such a tricky issue.
You're right. You're
'cause
right. It's always hard to
I
say.
think it's almost impossible for someone to host a show and not
You're
and
right.
be
You're right.
truly neutral.
You're right.
I think it's almost impossible to talk about politics and not tell people how you feel.
Yeah, we cannot know exactly who is in neutral. You're right.
So just by the I talked about how the BBC, the different adjectives it uses, implies its bias, and I think that would be the same with any host here on GFN. We would just imply our bias one way or the other based on the words we use.
Well, for Korean media, I think the job is quite simple. For example, if we're talking about only election, as you referred to, like important ones such as presidential election, or the governmental election or provincial election, whatever.
Mhm.
Regarding election only and not other political matters, I think the most important fact that we should focus on is the truth. A lot of journalism nowadays are kind of hazy nowadays. A lot of them has
Opinion
lost
based.
their credibility to people because of their bias and all to, how should I say, just changing the narrative whenever they want. And I think actually reporting the actual truth to the people nowadays will be something very uncommon. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
It's going to be something that are not really, how should I say, you can see every day and now and then, because it becomes so hard to find a journalism that actually only focus on the truth. And I think people's gonna appreciate that if we can find, or even
Yeah.
GFN can do that job, that we can be some kind of only reminding source of a truth for the people.
Yeah, it's such a difficult issue because even the truth now is
Yeah.
politically
What is
charged
truth?
sometimes.
I don't know.
Yeah. So unfortunately,
Everything is twisted.
we have run out of time.
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
It was
but,
really fun.
Yeah, we could talk about this for a lot longer, but we're all done. Okay, so thanks for coming in, guys.
Thank you for having us as
Yeah.
always.
Yeah, we'll see you same time next week.
Yeah, see you same time next week. Bye bye.
Okay, goodbye.
We can
Was
talk more
very-
about this over the salad or something.
Serious and tricky, but it was really fun.
Alright, now it's time to
Yeah.
take off my mask.
Ah.
Who's touching me? Bye, Dennis.